Hello, Marky Dragon, also known as Marcus Eikenberry in real life, and welcome to another roundtable for Shroud of the Avatar, the next game by Richard Garriott, and today we have a special guest with us. No, he's not the man who you see on camera right now that looks totally lost in the green shirt and the hat.
I was trying to turn on my recorder there. Okay.
Hello, Chris.
Howdy.
Welcome, Chris from Portalarium. And it's Chris Spears, is that correct?
That is correct.
Chris, what is it that you do at Portalarium?
So my official title on the company is the tech director and tech lead on Shroud of the Avatar, but I've really been wearing a lot of hats lately. I've actually been acting as the dev director and producer, and also helping to write down a lot of the design stuff that we go over with Richard.
And tonight it's marketing?
And tonight it is marketing, that's correct. And earlier this week it was I was a company lawyer as I worked on the legalese for the crowd sharing and crowdsourcing things so we can get that live to people. So whatever hat needs to be worn.
Yes, well, that's the way it is with a lot of teams, smaller teams. Chris, tell us a little bit about your background. I assume you have some experience with other video games.
I do indeed.
And so how would you describe that? How would you define yourself in the video game industry?
I'm one of the guys that's been crawling around mostly in Austin for the last 20 years, but I was teaching C++ in college about 20 years ago. And my brother talked me into joining the games industry. I joined a company called 360 Pacific that was Harpoon and Harpoon 2 and V for Victory and all those games. And after that, they were acquired and then closed down, and I moved to Austin. And I've been doing PC games, smart toys, console games, and also worked on Tabula Rasa with Richard before, which is part of where I have the connection with a lot of the guys there. But all over the place. I've been almost exclusively listed as a lead programmer or tech director, but I wear whatever hats need to be worn.
Right. Yeah. I recognize, or I resemble that remark. So, okay. So now you said something already that kind of piqued my interest, and you said crowdsourcing.
Okay.
So what is it about Shroud of the Avatar? What content is being sourced from the crowd?
So we're trying to. A few other games have done this before. A lot of the NXL guys are doing it. There's a few other people that are doing it. We're trying to take it to a whole nother level. Whereas instead of it being a very formal, we will put out a call and you submit it and here's the process. It goes to the Unity store, and we're actually just, whenever we have people who need art, we're putting out calls for art. So we're trying to be very casual about it. But we're outsourcing anything that people can make quality art on. We've had a number of people who have been posting art. We've got, right now we've got a gentleman known as the Hairy Man in forums. If you see him, he's always on chat. But he's actually been making some incredible art. So.
And so this is artwork that's going up on the Unity store, and then you're getting use of it within Shroud of the Avatar.
So we will probably move to having it go onto the Unity store, having them submit it to the Unity store, and then have it come to forwarded to us. But for right now, it's actually, we have a different system set up where you can just upload it to I forget what it's called, but it's a website where you can fill out a form and submit the art through the website, and it comes straight to me. And then it's up to you if you want to submit it to the Unity store, you can. And the license is up there, and we're very friendly on the license, and that all you are granting us is the right to use your art. You still retain ownership of it, so people can do whatever they want to with it afterwards.
Okay. So, and Unity, I think, has a pretty good thing in place for copyright and everything, rights management of the items.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And we're looking at their license for a lot of that stuff, and we're also doing crowd sharing which that's the one we're still waiting on the legalese for it to get approved before we can actually put stuff out. We've got some stuff out there. And that's both the crowdsourcing and crowd sharing. It's not just about us getting art or giving art. It's a lot of it is about getting the community involved early on and giving them access to actual assets in case they want to make, their own little stuff, or if they want to play around in Unity or just put together their own little scenes. We're going to try to share as many of the house models as we can, as many of the art pieces as we can. And also if there's other people who are actually making games, commercial, indie, whatever, that they can actually use the art that we give out for them. They just have to give us credit somewhere in the credits section.
Let me play devil's advocate. And it sounds like, though, that you're setting yourself up for third-party shards, like what happened in Ultima Online. You're giving them all. The art was one of the worst things that they had the most difficulty with in making their own versions. And how do you think that will affect things?
Well, for the single-player game, I don't. Obviously, there's not going to be shards for the single-player games, just because there's not. There's no network connection. For the multiplayer game, we will constantly be updating things, which will make things a bit tougher for people to keep up in terms of content. If someone thinks they can actually keep up with us in terms of content, then I think they're not aware of how much work goes into it. But the real special sauce is going to be on the server side anyways. And we're being so open with things. There may be people who will open their own shards, but I think a lot of the desire to have their own shards will be diminished just by how open we're being with people on things and how quickly we're getting things updated and how quickly things are going to be changing.
That's always been my theory. Just flood them with great content, and who would want to do anything else?
And the shard stuff really didn't come along till the EA kind of, the community really got frustrated with EA side of things.
Yeah. So, who's your developer assistant that's with you there?
This is I brought him into the office a few times here, but this is my Italian Greyhound. This is Mojito.
Cool.
Very sweet little dog. The wife did the,
well, bonus points will now get twice the amount of views. Cute dog on the show.
Awesome.
There you go, buddy. Say hi.
He's not very interested in the camera. My cat is camera shy. I have a cat that's named Yolo. So, yes, before I knew that Yolo was actually based on a real person. So.
Yep, we had David Watson in. I'm sure you saw the video of talking to him. That was one where we were trying to get in. We're hoping to get in each of the old members of the old team and trying to get them in there just to talk to the old characters. And he came in and we were expecting to do just a 30-second endorsement. And if you saw the video, I finally just put up
30 minutes.
Yeah, it was 30 minutes, and it was like, you know what? I think every minute of this is worth people seeing if they want to see it. None of it had to be edited down. It was really just straight. He's kind of a bard. Yeah, actually. He always has stories, and even had his, I forget if she was in it all, but he had his apprentice loot maker with him. Loot maker, crossbow maker, and she was there helping out with things. I think you might see her arm in the videos, but not too much more.
Yeah, okay. So, Frank and Fear? That sounds like pork and beans. Like a name for pork and beans. Frankenfear. This is like the kids version of pork and beans. It's Frankenfears.
Frank and beer. Franks and beer are a great combination.
Frank and beer.
Yeah.
Oh,
Frank and beer. Yeah. I'm okay with that.
I'll be beer.
So, guys,
let's do the questions.
Yeah. And those of you who are watching live, I'll post the link in chat again. It's also in the description since chat doesn't work too well. And we have some room for other people to join us, too. So
you go ahead, Frank. You keep up with this stuff a lot more than I do.
Okay. Well, in the last dev chat, they showed how the user interface might look, and there were some windows with very fine lines around the corners for like the chat text. And I assume that's all going to be movable, where I can drag it wherever on the screen I want and make it whatever size.
It'll be somewhat customizable. The chat window should be movable. The real goal for it is we're trying to keep things as minimal as possible, and everything on the screen, the combat, the button bar at the bottom will be sliding off the bottom if there's no combat going on, and same thing with the upper and right and left hand corners in the chat window. If no one's talking to you, then it'll also vanish after a few seconds. But the idea is that if you aren't doing anything, your screen will be absolutely zero UI. You can, of course, you'll be able to go and toggle it on and off so it'll stick. And all you have to do to get back, like the combat or the button bar at the bottom, is move your mouse to the bottom of the screen and it'll slide up.
Right. So is that button bar at the bottom, is that hotkeys for my special abilities, or is combat going to be button mashing?
It'll be button mashing. Combat is a long topic. It's we're trying out a few different things, just trying to get some more skill elements into it. We're trying to get away from the pure mindless button mashing or pattern button mashing that you have like in World of Warcraft type game. We're actually trying to add some skill elements that we're also trying to add some offline preparation, not necessarily offline, but out of combat preparation type stuff. So we're actually introducing, I even hate to use the word because it always brings lots of flames. We're using some of the some deck mechanics from card games. It's trying to bring some skill into that there's actually some planning ahead of time that you can build out your own custom set. And we're using that to solve a number of problems. One, it introduces a large skill element. We have a lot of ways to tune that. And it introduces a skill element in combat of being able to use it well and paying attention to it, and kind of what I refer to as plate spinning, that you need to be able to pay attention to more than one thing at a time. It also allows us to continue the classic Ultima classless system, so there's not like you're a warrior, you're a mage, you're a thief. What you are, how you play your character can change greatly depending on what's actually in that, how you set up that button bar. So you can actually keep a couple of different setups. So you can have here's my soloing setup, but when I have friends, and I always play the healer, so you have another setup of the buttons that is actually set more for healers. But I've got a couple of hour-long plus talks on it online, and we're not going to be showing off hardly any of that for Rooster Teeth. We just didn't think it was far enough along visually. We're still working out some of the mechanics, but by the end of the year time frame, we'll have actual working and skillful combat in there. And for those who are worried that it may be too much work, we're trying to balance that and make this so this is not something that you have to think about it. You have to use it for every single combat. It'll be more the, as I refer to them, you can handle combats with greens and maybe equal level creatures, like lower level creatures and equal level creatures, without using that, just using basic attacks without thinking about it. And we're really just trying to make this for the more challenging fights, you're actually going to have to pull in some skill elements.
Yeah. So I saw, sorry, on the Rooster Teeth schedule, they have Richard for an hour on in one of the panel rooms. Is he going to show gameplay that you've got, or is there going to be a booth somewhere with that going on?
I don't think we know for sure. I think he's supposed to be, I think they've got him for an hour, but I think he's giving an actual lecture. I'm sure he'll get a few plugs in for Shroud of the Avatar, but I don't know how much time he's going to be able to spend on it. And I don't know if he'll be showing the game off there. We're going to find some way to show off some video, especially after our Kickstarter videos where it was programmer art. Really trying to show off a lot of functionality and a lot of gameplay elements, but all people saw they just can't get by the programmer art. So now that we actually are getting to the point where we have some near final quality game art, we'd really like to show it off again. So if nothing else, if we don't show it off there, Richard playing it there, then we will definitely be showing it off, making some videos or fly-throughs or playthrough sessions. Because we do have a full game loop now of, I believe what will be great is that you can craft, you can harvest goods, you can do combat, you can have conversations, you can decorate houses. We've got a number of elements we can show off. But again, I'm not sure if he'll be allowed to show that off or if it'll just be video show. We'll see.
So for us players like me, that you're just introducing whether or not it's premeditated murder or just some random murder. That's what it sounded like. Because if I got to think about it, that's premeditated, right? That's for going down the road. I like that. That's a good thing.
So, like when Dungeons and Dragons started, you might be a mage with a huge spell book with lots of spells in it. But at the beginning of each day, you had to program the 6 or 8 spells you were going to have.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be like that.
Actually, so the way, well, I always say, preface everything I say with our current plan is, because if things don't end up being fun or they don't end up working out, it's easy to have a design on paper and even do some playthrough testing and testing out off the computer, but actually getting it in and then getting, it might be fun with bad AI and then you put good AI in and it quits being fun. So this is one of those things that nothing is going to be forced into the game. I always say that there's no sacred cows, and that I think the other one is babies will die, that we're going to have to kill some babies to make a good game, which of course, for Richard, has a lot of different meanings since he always has children killed in his game. But this is, if a game, no matter how attached someone is to a game idea, if it ends up not being fun in the final product, then we are going to change our plans. But the way that it is currently set to work is that you'll be given a set of runes, or just kind of the equivalent of cards, that skills will open those up, items will open those up, consumables will open those up, and you'll just have a large number of those to pick from. You'll get to put together a stack of 30 or so of these that then get dealt out to you at random to your bottom bar. So it's not a fixed button 1 is always shield bash, button 2 is always throat cut, button 3 is always adrenaline surge. They actually get moved around, and some of them also have combos where 2 cards will combine into a more powerful card. So it's one of those things where you can build your deck with certain combos in mind. And again, that's part of that whole plate spinning and trying to pay attention to both combat and those at the bottom. But yeah, focusing those with, you can build out a deck that has more defensive elements in it. You can have one that's more offensive. You can go for one that's more healing or crowd control. There's also brings in the concept of, it's not just, my card is going to be like, will it do damage or will it heal? It'll also be like, this card may actually change up something with the cards, because we've got a couple different plans and a couple different ways we're playing through with it right now. But the one that we're leaning towards, and we'll see how it plays out once we actually have some real solid encounters and other players to fight against. But the one we're leaning towards is that the cards actually deal out, and they stay for X number of seconds, and then they vanish. So it's kind of a use them or lose them type card system. And while you're playing out, the cards will be changing out. And it's really something you have to pay attention to. And this lets us bring in, there's a lot of knobs that it gives us. Primarily, like, we can change the speed at which they deal out. We can change the number of cards at the bottom. We can change how long they stay. We can allow skills to affect that too. So maybe you are a skill player where you play nonstop, 12 hours a day, and this takes no brain power for you at all. And you can have those actually have more cards at the bottom, have skills that open that up, deal out faster, and you can also throw in cards like, well, I just occasionally want to just wipe my deck and deal out 10 new cards at the bottom to see what new combos might come up. But it lets you choose your play style a lot. And so some players will they're just going to put a bunch of heal potions in there, and they're going to have a few defensive attacks, and that's all they're going to do with it. But it lets you also try that out, building up those combos and building up that stack that those are going to be pulled from. It just gives you an offline kind of out-of-combat experience where you can go and try out the different combos, and people will, of course, be posting all the different, here's my favorite 30-card combo for when I'm playing a tank. Share yours with me. So again, that's the current plan. We'll see how that holds up once we actually have the game to a point where everything in it is fun, the AI is solid, and we have some real solid encounters.
Is this system of kind of basing this off of cards? Is this or a deck? I'm not sure what you call it. I haven't played any games like that, but one of the things that keeps coming to my mind is that there's a lot of people who will their decks. They do a lot of building of their decks and acquiring of stuff. I mean, are we going to have any buttons that are like foil wrapped? And we weigh them out to try and figure out whether or not they're the valuable buttons.
There's not going to be there's no plan at this point to make this a collectible card game type thing where you have to buy. I got to buy 97 packs or whatever. There's not going to be none of that. It's going to be more tied to skills. It's going to be tied to items, powers and abilities. It's going to be that type of thing. It's not going to be where the guy who spends the most money on buying foil rack or buying their collectible card decks or whatever is going to have the advantage.
Yeah, I guess that's the tactile version of pay to win. With the cards, is that I'm spend $1,000 on my deck, and so yes, I've got some more stuff than the $100 guy.
Yep.
So okay.
But yeah, well, it also feeds into just a number of things in addition to the whole skill element that it brings to the game, and the way we're planning on it. If you've watched many of the talks, you know that I always talk about we're not going to be like a World of Warcraft or EverQuest or any of those type power curves, where someone who's 10 levels higher than you is infinitely more powerful than you. We're really going more for a more linear, actually a little bit more flatter than that type power curve. So, and it also brings a little bit of a luck element into it with the dealing, so that it's not going to be the same old thing that if you have two guys who always fight 100% of the time, that guy will beat that guy. There's a skill element, but there's a little bit of luck to it that you might get a lucky draw.
So I'll actually win occasionally instead of dying every time.
That's good, Mark.
Yeah, you should see me in some of the other games I play. I fear any stats that show how many times I die. So, yeah.
Got to break a few eggs.
I break a dozen at a time.
Yeah.
Well, any more questions on that stuff?
Well, I've never played a game where the curve wasn't steep. Where someone who's played the game a long time and has a higher skill will have any chance of losing to a guy that just started his account a few days ago. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. I have no clue. But then I also relate it to, you're supposed to be able to play the game solo or with friends. So how is that going to translate? How will a solo character ever beat some big boss fight late in the game compared to a group of 5 or 6 people?
So we haven't decided if we're going to have catch-up code or leveling code so that big boss fights become easier if you're doing them solo. Right now we're leaning towards not having that in there. It introduces a lot of problems when we do have that. There probably will be some fights in the online version that you just can't win solo. Those will clearly be out of the main quest line. We want you to be able to complete the main quest line completely solo, but there will be some ways that you can probably lean on consumables, things that actually have a cost with them, rather than just having using powers and your skills or magic spells. Will be some things that if you have more expensive consumables on them, that you can probably push your way through encounters you otherwise wouldn't have been able to. So using potions to compensate or consumables to compensate. But yeah, it's a little bit of a tricky balance of trying to make a game for single player and multiplayer. But again, we're going to keep the combats that can't be won solo out of the quest line as much as possible, and there probably will be some encounters you just can't win solo though.
Or could be a different boss or a different way to win that scenario? Is that where we're going there, sort of? Or it's not as part of you just kind of go around it, or I don't know.
Well, so there'll be some of them that are, there will be some boss fights that you just will not be able to beat solo. But again, we'll keep those out of the main storyline. Those will be, offshoot type things, or, it won't block you from the main storyline that Tracy and Richard are scheming.
Kind of be a bonus, in other words, or something like that.
And there will be at least a couple of the sections in the main quest line that'll probably move to be you have to do it alone, because we will want to balance it, and we need to tune it for that amount of time. And that's just, I can't go into the story unless Richard has talked about it, which he hasn't talked about that part too much. But
that's okay. I'm just trying to get an idea in my head what you just said there.
Chris, you should have a few drinks first, and then we'll talk about the secret information again.
Yeah.
So, I have a question that's really broad, and you don't really have to answer it if you don't want to, but there's a lot of subjects that always get a lot of attention on the forums.
Oh, yeah.
What subjects aren't being covered on the forums that you want input for?
There haven't been too many questions about the economy. I've been surprised there haven't been more questions about housing as well. And of course, PvP is the big one that nonstop. I think I saw a thread that was 36 pages long on our forums.
Yeah. You may as well ask about religion or politics. So what's? Go ahead.
The economy is probably one of the big ones that is, I think, vastly underestimated in terms of its value and importance. That you pull it off right. Mm-hmm. Well, people aren't asking about it. They aren't talking about it that much. I've seen one thread on economy stuff in our forums, at least, that people, it's one of those things that is hugely important to the enjoyability of the game, and especially for merchant types and pretty much for everybody, just because you want to feel like when you're finding stuff and you're getting stuff that it has value, that you want to make sure that it actually feels like you're moving forward and you're earning stuff, and rampant inflation that hits a lot of games is pull the fun out of it.
Hyperinflation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, well, I definitely look forward to that. It is important to me, and I think that will happen whether you guys design it or not. Yeah. So, and has there been any other thoughts on what happens to the external market? Because one pops up around every one of these games, but and some games try to embrace it, some games try to quell it, and some just try to ignore it.
Yeah, so it's one of those things. Without a closed economy, trying to completely lock out gold sellers is nearly impossible. Trying to completely lock that down. And a closed economy would be something that if you've played or read up on Wizard 101, where everything has a fixed value, everything has a known value. It's just the Ultima Online fans would not tolerate the closed market, so we're not, even though that does handle the the outside gold sellers and the gold farmers, it's just not something we'd even consider. It's absolutely totally immersion breaker and would destroy like all the merchants and everybody else who they want to get in there and they want to be crafters and they want to sell stuff and they want to if they want to undercut the guy next door to them by 5 gold, they can do that type thing. So in terms of how we're handling that, we have a few mechanisms. Hopefully we're going to have a dev chat on economy soon, but at this point it'll probably be after RTX. There's some special sauce that we've got cooked up in terms of handling inflation and how we're going to handle, at least make it tough for people to become gold farmers.
Damn, I'm out of my profession then. I'm just kidding.
So, is it too early to say? I know that you've ruled out the global auction house, but if I go to a town, do I have to run to every single house and talk to every single vendor to buy stuff?
There's going to be local bazaars that will be for those people who don't have houses. That will be you'll get a worse rate at those. The local bazaar will probably have a higher rate than the if you have a vendor on your own property. So you can go to those, and those will be local goods. Right now we're still leaning towards not having a global auction house. There's also talks of like maybe we have a global auction house of some sort you can get through the bazaar, but it just has a really high rate if you have to buy it from another town. But right now there's actually some value in making it so there's actually local economy and making it a little bit of a pain to go somewhere else to pick stuff up. It allows for people to move. Yeah, it allows people to do things like you can become your merchant trade can be that you actually buy stuff here and sell it there type stuff, and knowing what the value in different areas are.
Right. I'm okay with that. If I could make money as a player if I go to some remote area of the map and mine whatever resources there and take it to the opposite end of the map and sell it to a vendor. I'm totally okay with that. I just wondered if I have a merchant in my house, but my house is on the outskirts of town, maybe no one will ever run across it, so I'll never make any sales. So can I put my vendor in this bazaar?
Right now we have the vendor will be standing at the edge of the lot. That's one of the things that we've talked about is how either town criers that you can hire or letting vendors go somewhere else, or but part of it is we're trying to make we all know what happened with Ultima Online. The value of the house was very location dependent, and we're trying to push that as well, and trying to that benefits the people that are in early in the game, because they can definitely go and grab the the prime lots that are right on the main road or right by the bazaar. So as tempting as that is, we'll probably, right now I'm leaning towards leaving it so your vendor's at your house, because it adds more value to the house, the location, and again gives a benefit to the people who are in there early and adds some extra value to those guys. And I know you guys will be in there early, so I'm hoping you like that.
Yeah. One thing about that, if you have good product, good price, if you're providing what people want, they remember where you're at, they mark a rune at your vendor, and when they need it, they just hop over and get it. At least that's the way it was in UO. I don't know if there'll be any kind of travel like that in this game, but
there'll be some type of fast travel. We haven't talked about it yet externally, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. There'll definitely be some type of quick travel around. We're trying to make it a little bit costly. It's not an absolutely free just teleport wherever you want to. Just because if you do that, then the whole, what we just discussed a minute ago, if I'm going to go up to the northeast corner of the map and then buy stuff and then come down and sell it in the southwest corner of the map, that becomes, trivial, so it really rules out that. We're trying to add a little bit of pain to it, so the people who want to work for it can actually make a profit doing that.
Yeah, moon gates. We like those. Are you guys trying to introduce, as far as economy, are you guys trying to introduce kind of the original vision that Ultima Online had, where something affects another thing? And the way they had it set up before, everybody kind of, just they depleted everything and then nothing happened. I don't know. Is that kind of where you guys are trying to go again, like a Take-Two on that, or?
So there's going to be some of that. Of course, the stuff in Ultima Online with the original stuff that had been envisioned, that if you've heard Richard talk about it, they had all the grand plans. And I think another one of the Richard sayings, or things he'd like saying, is that the plans always fall apart upon confrontation with the enemy. Yeah. I think that kind of happened with the grand plans I remember there'll be sheep, and if the players kill the sheep and the dragon was feeding on the sheep, the dragon will come. And I think that they actually had a lot of that stuff in there, and the servers immediately came crawling to its knees. So we have a lot of that type of stuff that is not that in depth, but in terms of helping out cities and helping out defend different cities and transportation things. That there'll be things that actually affect the real world, that actually affect the map and change what's going on the map.
Okay, so they kind of want to try that again, but different, more refined.
Yep. And there'll also be the city. If you've heard talk about the city sieges, that's one of those things that not sure how many Tabula Rasa fans were out there, but that was one of the things that truly, whether you liked the game or not, was absolutely the most fun part of the game, were the sieges and defending bases and those type of things, where it really felt like you were taking part of a bigger combat and actually doing some good.
Yeah, like a world event type thing. Those are cool. Yes, those are very cool. They used to have those in Ultima Online, except a seer would run it, or whatever, but it would still be fun as hell. You just all of a sudden, whoa, hey, fun.
Is there any plans for items when we're talking about selling stuff and everything? question in Twitch chat is, will there be anything that's soulbound gear or that is account bound?
There will almost certainly be some things that are soulbound. We haven't decided if they're going to be the bind on equip type stuff, but there'll be a few things. The vast majority, compared to most other games, though, it's not going to be that. It's not going to be, anything over a certain level of power is going to be soulbound. It's really going to be more, I did something grand and great and got a reward for it, and that results in a soulbound. There'll probably be some soulbound crafting items as well that are, if you've seen some of the other talks where I talk about crafting, that there'll be the key item that, without this key you can't make recipe X, that, some of those will be soulbound. Trying to think what things have been talked about that have been soulbound. But there will be some, just because it's a game mechanic that we really don't want to just let people be able to go and do something and give away some really powerful element in the game that would unbalance it. We want people to have to earn it. And it adds value to the players as well, just because if you see someone with this thing that's a soulbound element that you can only get through some really tough, event, then you know that they actually earned it instead of just buying it in the auction house. But again, it'll be minimal. We're not trying to destroy the economy. And that's one of those things that can actually damage the economy if you start making everything of value soulbound.
Yeah, a lot of games that I've played, the more valuable objects had no benefit whatsoever. It was a robe that was a color that was a bug for a short period of time, or a special rock, and so it's a vanity item, I guess you'd call it. So
Yeah.
I certainly hope those are planned in the game.
Oh yeah, there's tons of vanity items, and there'll be vanity items, and of course house decoration vanity items will probably be another big one. Just trophies that you can show off for your house, and just
any that are truly unique or just rare.
There's been talk of some of the unique things. I guess one item that's been unique is talking about giving out people who actually submit art through the crowdsourcing stuff, that they'll probably get a small version of their art to put as a trophy. So they can actually decorate their house with the crowdsourcing art trophies. There'll be some others that'll be semi-unique, but they're not. We haven't talked about any that are 100% unique now, and that we only get one in the world. It gets tough. We're not looking at doing sharding, so we probably will have some more show up along the line, but at least for launch, it's a lot of content work to do so that one guy can have it.
Right.
So it really is. It's tough to justify. It's one of those things as we move past launch and people are starting to work through the content, discover all the crafting recipes, we'll definitely be adding some of those. That is one thing that we had talked about as well. I guess it was another unique was achievements in the game, of having people like that. There's achievements for you're the first person to complete this recipe, that you will get an achievement. And the achievement can unlock some items that you can actually have as trophies. And of course, those, since it'll be a server first type thing, there will only be one of those.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing I was talking about.
Yeah.
It's too bad that I don't think this will ever happen again, but one of the beautiful things about Ultima Online was the mistakes. The rocks or the horse dung or the all these other things that could be picked up and collected. Some of them would respawn on some event or whatever, like at server up, and others, like the singing statues or whatever, they were just one. And once they were picked up, they were gone. And it was basically, I think, maybe they just forgot to lock them down or something. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure we won't make any mistakes at all, so there won't be any of that stuff. We're going to be perfect day one.
Yeah, I guess I just have never encountered that in another game. Because the mistakes were, they just worked different. It didn't mean that you could go and pick it up. It just meant that it didn't function right, or whatever.
Looked funny or something.
Yeah, or was backwards or some junk like that. But I don't know. That was one of the magic things of it, and I don't know how to replicate that. A couple of games have tried to replicate very unique items like that, and I think have really failed, because when you intentionally put something like that out into the economy, just like you were saying, okay, the really unique things take a lot more money, a lot more dev time and everything to put together, and is it worth it for one person to own that? And the answer is no, and so, yeah. I just, it's one of those things, how do we bring that magic back?
Yep.
And that's just a question that's open-ended.
Yeah, it loses its value if it's on purpose.
Yeah.
It's when it was sneaky and we could only, then it was worth a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll have some of those in there, but there will be some that will be intentional. We'll probably have some just for the house decoration type stuff. There'll probably be some moving trophy type stuff that you can put out in your front yard, statues and other things like that. There may only be one of that may move around, or signs or billboard type things. But a lot of that stuff will continue to develop over time. If you've seen me talk on any of this stuff, our goal is we're getting something out as soon as possible, as soon as it's fun. I keep calling it the MVP, a minimal viable product. We're going to get that to you guys as soon as it feels like something that you want in your hands, which is kind of what the Minecraft model, where you got out something quick, and as soon as it was fun, he put it in people's hands, and then he's just continually added to it. We're going to continue doing the same thing, except with a much larger team. So there's going to be a time when we're going to say, here, the single-player version is done, which will probably be towards the end of next year, but we're going to get stuff in people's hands, this year, so you can start testing out the combat and tell us if it's actually fun or if it's too exhausting. But that additional content and some of that unique stuff can also continue to be added in later on. Our publishing system, which is pretty much in place already, allows us to just roll out anytime new content comes up, it's out there. So we plan on adding new scenes, new items, new quests, new everything, just weekly, if not daily.
Okay, so I'm going to switch and ask a question about the map. When you're on the overworld map and you go down into one hex, will that always contain the same stuff, or will it be randomly generated when I trigger it?
So that's one of those contentious points, which is really one that it has a lot of pros and cons. The dual scale map is what I'm talking about for those who don't actually know what I'm talking about. That there's the high level map. It's kind of like Ultima 4 type game, rather than Ultima 6, where there's the overworld map and then you zoom into the scenes when something exciting actually happens. So what that lets us do is separate the overworld map from the actual content underneath it, which was key to us because we do plan on continually rolling stuff out. So no, for the most part, there will not be a one-to-one connection where this overland tile always leads to this exact scene. A lot of that will change just over time. And there will be tons of points of interest, like key things that will happen here, and there will be some that will, it will always be the same. If there's like a dungeon there, it may always be that dungeon entrance that it takes you into this exact same dungeon. But for a lot of them, they'll just be a set of, here's 10 or 15 things that it can pull from. That there may just be like a forest template of here's the 15 possible forest encounters that may be rare. Some of them may be rare, and those may be actually the cool ones, which gives you an incentive to go out there and try to find these things. There'll also be some, it lets us do things like there's an encounter that only happens at a certain time of day. So without that one-to-one connection, we can actually say, hey, if it's something magical has happened, which Richard hasn't talked about yet, is going on, then we can change up what scenes people are taken to when they enter into the scenes. And it always keeps it fresh, and it allows us to do things where people are just going out to, go into the mountain edge to go mine some more, and they go out there and they just happen to get a random rare scene that actually has some extra cool stuff going on with it. And again, as I mentioned, it was really important to us because we do plan on continually adding content to the game, even after launch.
It's good stuff.
Okay, well, we got time for maybe one more good question.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to fire away?
Bring it.
I want Chris to tell us something we haven't asked.
Oh yeah, what is the question that we have not asked that we
What
want
have
to
we not
know?
asked that you want to know?
Ooh. Yeah, I probably should have prepared for this better.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I actually watched the interview with Rick, and that was my preparation for this. Was see how hardcore you guys were on that stuff. You didn't talk to him about what past games he liked. You haven't asked me if I'm a Care Bear or a PvPer.
Oh, okay. We got Frankenberry here.
Yeah.
And
Frankenberry.
so Frank is Care Bear, Beer is PvP. Are you Frank or are you Beer?
I'm really more in the middle. I'll admit that when I played Ultimas from Ultima 1 on Apple II Plus to Ultima Online, and Ultima Online experiences, I had some negative early experiences because I was playing with a girl at the time, and anytime we'd step out of the town, we'd get slaughtered. And I think we'd get slaughtered time after time after time after time. And it was just endless exploits, and it was the things, the early days. And I'm sure you guys all remember some of these exploits and stuff. Like you could see a guy outside of town, and he would shoot an arrow at you, and you'd run up to attack him, and he'd take one step, and you'd hit him, and the guards would kill you instantly because he knew exactly where the town edge was. And of course, hitting someone in the town, the exploits. And the early ones, the exploits of getting caught in the chair maze for the new characters into the game. I think we got caught by that one. We got caught by the, dungeons paralysis field, where you step outside of a dungeon, you're instantly in a paralysis and wall of fire field, and then they take all your stuff. But anyways, so that PK experience was kind of negative, but it's one of those things that also, it was like you just want to get back out there and get more. I think we're not going to be that hardcore on things, but we do realize the value that if there's no danger, if there's no risk of loss, then there's, it devalues the experience. So we'll see where we end up, and a lot of that will probably come from the players. We've got something we're trying the new thing with the allowing you to see people you want to see and not see them if you don't want to see them, and we will probably be using some of that for the PK and PvP stuff, so that the people who are absolute Care Bear can play absolute Care Bear. But again, we'll see what the players actually think once we get there.
I want to thank you for bringing back all those fond memories.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
I was
too.
like, oh my god, that was fun. Playing on the... God, I missed that.
Yep.
Yeah, try to step back. Oh, there's somebody behind you now, invisible? Oh, that's too bad.
I know.
Sorry to hear that.
I remember the boxes being placed around my feet whenever I get to my house door while I'm trying to unlock my house.
Yeah, the Tamers would unleash all their dragons on you. I love those guys.
Yes.
I miss those guys.
I enjoyed the mayhem of that.
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. Even though I was the one always affected, and it was Fear here who was dishing it out. Yes.
Yeah.
But broke a few mice slamming them on the desk.
Yeah. I remember that story. You hurt your hand.
Yeah, I did. I thought I broke my hand one time. So. Okay, well, Chris, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, and thank you, Frank and Beer. Fear.
Some people know who I am. It's okay.
Yeah. For those of you on YouTube, there's a link in the description to his channel, which he's funny there too. So
it's about PvP. Yeah.
Yep. So. Okay, and we got a couple of weeks before the next one. Marky is going on vacation.
That's
so
yeah.
Well, in a couple of weeks, we should be by Rooster Teeth demo time. You should get either myself or somebody else on the show with you guys, so we can
Frank
talk about what
Frank is going to be there.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be there, being a pest.
Being a pest, awesome. Yeah, so we're hoping that he can come back with some nuggets from there and share them on the show. So, most definitely.
Hopefully, Richard will spill the beans on a few more things, and we'll have even more to talk about next time.
Yeah. Okay.
No problem.
Well, thank you, everybody, and till next time. Fare thee travels well. Is that how it was? What was the sayings whenever you said goodbye in Ultima?
Just fare thee well.
Fare thee well. Yeah. Okay. All of you, fare thee well.